Hi, I'm Robin Jack Sarner. I was born and raised in Miami, Florida, and after graduating college, moved to the West Coast via Utah and Wyoming till I eventually hit the end of the earth here in Los Angeles. I consider myself a large, abstract, multimedia visual artist, but I can remember as young as 7 years old just wanting to create new things. And by about age 12, knowing I would be an artist for the rest of my life in some capacity. Although born on the East Coast, living on the West Coast and traveling between has given me a lot of information for my art. I'm informed a lot by Mother Nature and feeling as though I need to validate and heal all my past. So those themes tend to run inside my artwork and become a narrative most of the time by the colors I use, the line work I tend to scratch around with, and compositions that are big and bold, as well as the size of my canvas. They all speak to experiences from then to now. Now that my children are grown and attending college, I have dedicated a space to create. And unfortunately, as much as I want for it to be bigger, it works. But one day I hope to have a studio where I can paint paintings the size of 10 feet or larger. Painting small for me is difficult. It's a training exercise and it's very good for me. But I prefer to paint as large as humanly possible with gestural strokes and later adding mixed media and texture. Some influences on my work were deeply brought on upon by the mid-century artists, specifically Joan Mitchell. It's often said if I put Joan Mitchell and Jackson Pollock together, I'd probably be their love child in terms of my style. But Lee Krasner and George O'Keeffe, Elaine de Kooning, and Mary Abbott, to name a few, have significantly helped me find strength in my work. In terms of technique, those that have influenced me were Jim Dine and Robert Rauschenberg, and specifically Cy Twombly. Their mark-making abilities, as well as the idea of adding everyday objects into your work, was something that seemed very precious to me and added another layer of meaning to my personal abstract work. I'm focusing now on the idea of lineage and perhaps this idea that we honor our past by memorializing them now. And after the recent sale of a very significant family member's farmhouse, my grandmother, I started to collect her ephemera, and I've been using that in a lot of my work, layering it into large abstract compositions. And I find that it just takes on a whole nother meaning. And when I stand back and look at the reason I'm doing it, I feel like it's more about honoring the person that's influenced you, but also about memorializing the idea of paper and our past and keeping those things alive a little bit for our future generations that are more technological now. So to me, it's important to keep remembering the past in ways that bring value to the very present generation. To me, being an artist, and the biggest challenge of that is constantly not letting your mind rest. Even though you're not working, one is working. The brain is constantly finding things to use in my work or how I could apply some new material or object or maybe a new technique that I'm learning about. So there is a constant practice of being an artist that does not rest. That some could say that's a challenge, some could say it's a negative. I consider it a positive, but it is exhausting. But advice I would give my younger artist self would be continue working and practicing no matter what, regardless of whether or not society thinks art is valuable, whether or not you have the resources. Just create how you can with what you have and continue to create regardless of trend. Trends don't do anything for your heart and your soul. They only seem to help you feel like you can make something to sell. But truly, art is about expressing your emotions and yourself, or speak to an issue in your life, not necessarily for financial gain. In terms of conventionalism and something I've done unconventional, I don't know if someone else has done it. I'm pretty certain someone probably has, but I love taking old work and upcycling it into new work and reusing it as part of the composition, texture, or some sort of line work that has come off of an old piece of canvas or pieces of paper that I used and ripped up or cut up, but I don't like to waste anything. So I've been experimenting with trying to sew that or glue it into my newer work. I think it's important in times of technology and lots of screens that art maintain the tactileness, the ability to record history with real elements, and the art of traditional art making is going wayside. So incorporating lots of paper into my work seems appropriate in memorializing that idea as well as the people around me. Hopefully by allowing oneself to be free with how they want to create their new art and express themselves in very unconventional ways, but using traditional teachings, I think is an exciting notion. And I hope intend to explore materials to the extent possible in making sure that I'm using them as far as I can in my work. To me, that's very interesting. In my studio, I find I work best with some sort of noise, whether it be news in the background or a book on tape, but I cannot seem to create in total silence. And perhaps that's just simply a product of having pretty bad ADHD. It's strange, but the noise helps me to focus. What I think people take away from my artwork is definitely an understanding that something happened while I created it, that it's passionate, thoughtful, and meaningful. And to me, that is gold, because that is really what I am trying to convey, is a message of heartfelt emotion. And whether or not the viewer understands it, just the fact that somebody looking at my work can already pick up on the fact that it was something heartfelt is so meaningful to me. My work has always been about my emotions and the idea that I could process past trauma or feelings from childhood through color, line, and texture. That has worked for me so far, but now I am starting to add an element of remembering and memorializing those that I've lost by including their ephemera in my work. So collage has just recently become a larger part of my work. It's my goal to express myself in the most prominent way by using materials that are upcycled, found, or part of my past life. And with all of that, create a narrative and a story that people can relate to and feel nostalgic from. I think it's important to remember our past, and it's also important to take that past and recreate it and make it into something new.